Welcome to the Isofarian Guard. It's a much hyped board game, but what about the writing? A lot of so-called influencers are so afraid to give out spoilers. And also, as Sky Kingdom Games, the creator is as tight-lipped as a nervous virgin. So let me show you how to give you an impression of the actual writing without spoiling, because it's easy to do. Let me make this a little bit higher. So we have this campaign 1. I have read the entirety of campaign 1. I can advise you to not do that. And the general impression is that the first chapter, there are 4 chapters in each like so. There are 4 chapters in each of the 4 books, so 4 by 4. There are also there's also a 5th chapter where the books of each of the threads come together. And I haven't read that one, but from what I read is that the story in the first few chapters is done by somebody else than the story that was done by the 3rd and 4th chapter. And they also said something like that to that effect in the Kickstarter updates, so that they hired extra authors to write, and that clearly shows in the manner of writing. So what the excerpts were in the Kickstarter updates was that they showed the writing that they had so far, and I think Eric Bitterman, the lead developer of Isofarian Guard, I think he wrote the first chapter and outlined the rest of the chapters, and they were actually filled in and refined by other authors. To give an example, so this is for people who are having doubts about writing quality and haven't bought Isofarian Guard yet, and for people who are nervous to start the campaign, and after the first chapter are having some doubts about should you invest the time to continue or not, and set it off as a done deal. I cannot answer if the writing is to your liking, but I can comment on the writing itself. So there is the style of the book is in point of view. It's a known writing style, so that when you are telling a story, then you tell the story in chapters, and each chapter you tell the story from a certain protagonist. That protagonist has his own motivations, way of thinking, perception, senses, and that should trickle down in how the story is written, what words are chosen, the manner of detail, for example. So that's and also some references to the background and the history of who that person was should at least trickle down in a good literature book. So this is of course not the key skill set from a board game developer, but we can get some impression here. So these things indicate that the text is read out loud with a dramatized voice in foreteller. More on foreteller later. So here it's written like there's always been a rivalry between the Espherian Guard and the King's Guard. Until now you assumed it was mostly a friendly one. The two King's Guards escorting you out of the city are only too happy to let you know what they really think about the Espherian Guard and you. And then as you approach the King's Gate, the shorter of the King's Guards roughly shoves you through the gate and into the road. The problem with this is that it sounds nice, but it does not invoke to me in the theater of my mind what this King's Gate looks like. I mean, I can take a general King's Gate and assume a lot of things, but the King's Gate should have been written out with a few keywords. How large is it? What material was it built of? And then the King's Guard themselves, they play a key role here by escorting the protagonist. And the only indication that you have is this picture. So when you are listening, you're missing out on the picture. So it's better. You have to make the extra connection. Also, on later parts, there are references to mini-map locations. So the docks, for example, in a city, there's a certain scene taking place. That those docks are never fleshed out, and that's really missing. What you ideally want is to identify yourself with Grigory here, and for example Alek, this guy. What does he look like? Or it doesn't really have an expression to his face. So the main argument is that, for example, here the mood is somber as you walk the coastal roads with your fellow exiles. This is it's not written here who these fellow exiles are, how they behave. Because as a guard, you are trained in perception, so you should perceive, especially as the main protagonist, perceive much more, and that should be given here. So, for example, a few familiar faces. They do try it. Baron, who helps in the smithy sometimes. So he should look like sturdy or something, or bald perhaps, some kind of age description. It doesn't come alive for me. And then Kellen, excellent swordsman. Why is he excellent? What do you remember about him? Danielle, always ready with a clever remark, but nice enough to get away with it. That's an actually good apt description. I mean, but what does Danielle look like, for example? It's not necessary for the story, but it makes it come alive. Then there are some other parts I highlighted. Don't watch here. Well, here's the major of a city, and then there is the choices. So that's an A/B choice, for example. That's written like here. Choose a path A or choose a path B. and if you choose A, then this is the story. But it starts with the guilds are suffocating this town, and the B story is also the guilds are suffocating this town, and the text is identical. So it's not really a choice. It's like a fake choice. I mean, they could have done a little bit more about the the weight of the decisions. And here it's the same thing. In chapter 2, you proceeds to a chapter, well, the Clayhorn huffs as it struggles to pull the jail card up. And here also the Clayhorn huffs as it struggles to pull the jail card up. So these are identical texts also, also to the bottom. Corners of his mouth with a napkin, and here corners of his mouth with a napkin. So that is a minor critique. The texts, so for example, this guy, he really has an interesting personality, and that he has snide remarks, and his own point of view is carried through very well. But you're already at 2.15. What else is there? Yeah, there are some protagonists. I'm not going to call the names, but I mean, I also referenced Felix. The other protagonists, they are not described. There are no pictures of them. So that is not so good. But there are some really good texts. I'm already at 11 minutes. Yeah, this is a nice part. So here Alek tries to explain to somebody how to make a protective border, and there is some protest from the listener, and then he says to Grigory, Felix lets out a breath as he was holding and smiles. Good, he says, very good, Grigory. You better go teach Alek how to be a better communicator, and I'll see about keeping the civilians safe. So that's a nice touch. The texts become really better, and even in there are also the last parts of the first campaign. It really comes alive. So I can recommend the story part.